So welcome everybody, and this is the first session for the English Australia Academic Managers SIG this year. So it's great to bring everyone together in 2025. We have some new and returning conveners of this SIG in 2025. So I'd just like to call out to the conveners for this year, and if you're here, just say hello to everybody. So we've got Paula Dimmel from the University of Adelaide English Language Centre.
Hi everyone, nice to see you.
And Susan Butt from ILSC Melbourne.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today.
We've got Maggie Holler from the College of International Education at the University of Newcastle.
Hi everyone.
And Jackson Howard, who's from Western Sydney University, the college.
Hello.
And Paul Williams from RMIT UP. And Terence Trankium, who's from ELC English Language Company.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all.
And I'd really like to thank Terence and Maggie and Susan, who are going to be facilitating today's workshop, and they've also put the workshop together and done a lot of work behind the scenes. So thank you so much for that. I'll hand over to you now, Maggie.
Great, thank you. Welcome everyone. Welcome for our first workshop called Inspiring Teachers, Inspiring Our Team. How can we create a growth mindset for our teachers? How can we coach them into thinking about the future, thinking about our courses and our students? So to start off today, we actually have a question for you all. Terence, can you flick to the next slide? Thank you. We've got a quick Menti for you all, just to see and a little bit reflect as well. How do you all inspire your teams at the moment? Maybe you have a small team, maybe you have a fairly large team. Either way is all fine. Maybe you can scan the QR code and pop in a few answers. And we'll have a quick look. We'll give you a couple of minutes for that. Perfect. First examples coming through already. Amazing. Set a positive example, recognition, very important. Being positive, giving them agency, sharing resources, PD events, role modeling, helping them see the difference they make in their students' journey. Positive feedback, being transparent, positive feedback coming through, point out the positive. Yes, lots of positive reinforcement by seeking their feedback and responding to it. Beautiful, lots of thoughts, great. Providing opportunities for them to showcase their passion. Yeah, that's the best case scenario. Cake, also best case scenario. When in doubt, cake helps for sure. Talking and laughing a lot, energy and enthusiasm, beautiful. Empowerment. Amazing. Thank you all so much. Beautiful ideas. Great. Looks like we're all doing a lot already, which is amazing. We've got one more question for you. And this is more of a reflective question to start things off today. In the past, what support did you wish you had from your manager in order to grow? So maybe you all started as a teacher or started at your institutions in a different role. What kind of support did you wish you have from your manager to grow in your role? constructive feedback with the clear action points. Yep, more mentorship. We'll talk about mentorship today. A space to discuss professional development, mentoring, a space to ask questions and workshop ideas, positive feedback, cake, yes, more specific encouragement to try new things. Yeah, encouragement, that's a good one. Yeah. I was lucky enough to have this trust and permission to make mistakes. Yeah, that experimentation part. Good. Knowing what and how to use the right tools. More one-on-one time with a senior teacher for guided support and learning. Shadowing, trust, a safe space. Beautiful. Lots of great ideas and a lot of overlapping ideas, which is really nice to see. Great. Thank you all so much. We hope this gets you into the right mindset to see flicking both perspectives as a manager and as someone who is being managed. So I'll hand it back over to Terence for the next part.
Okay, so I'm sharing the screen, but I think we're on up to Susan now.
Yes, thanks. Thank you very much, Maggie, for leading the way and getting us started with all those great ideas. And thank you everyone for sharing. So as I was going through this, we've all look at how we want to be inspired. We all think about ideas of how we can inspire our teams. And I was doing a little bit of research and there's so much out there. It was so easy to get lost. So I kind of narrowed it down to a few points and I'll go through those one by one. So from my research, what I found was that in recent studies and common studies that our teachers are mostly motivated when it's when our organization sets really clear and consistent performance management feedback. And it's performance management or performance is not necessarily a bad thing. It should be viewed as a really positive thing as to where you are, where you were, where you are, and where you want to go. And our job as academic managers is to help our teachers get there. So instead of complicating the process, it's setting up a straightforward system, make it organized, and make it approachable, that it integrates goal setting, reviews, feedback, and what kind of rewards that may come with that. So it's really important to have a good cohesive framework for increased performance. That does work. I find those really helpful and valuable for both the teacher and for me as their manager, as we do those on a either semi-annual or annual basis. And so the next one is making goal setting achievable. And this is something that I know personally I have become a big I've fallen victim to in some ways, is that I have overset my goals, and so that sometimes they're not achievable. And so that's part of our role too as academic managers, is to help our teachers to set effective goals and so that they can help drive their own success. So our teachers will excel when their goals are measurable, those SMART goals, we all know those SMART goals. So, and if they are aligned with the company's overall objectives and the mission and the values. So engaging our teachers in goal setting is also really important. And also sitting down with your teachers, if you have time, of course, and regularly adjusting the targets that they set or that you help set with them, so that it matches the priorities, what they should be working on, and what the school might need at the time, or what the class might need at the time, and so that they can become more engaged as well as employees. And so it's important for us to work with our teachers on their goals, and again, make sure that they're SMART. And the last point is providing regular feedback. So one of the things that I found useful for me and that I've used with my teachers is using that constant feedback loop where it never really ends. There's no defined end or beginning, so that you have a really nice dialogue with your team and with the individual. And so it's providing that feedback outside of reviews. It could be, you've got a student gave some positive feedback, or they contributed very nicely to a staff meeting or came up with they initiated a professional development informally with their peers, whatever it might be, is recognizing that there's a bit of giving them that positive feedback so that when you have something that's constructive to deliver, it doesn't seem scary. That's really important too. So foster a continuous communication with your team, and that can help create a really dynamic team. Goes back to one of the comments that someone or message things that someone wrote in the earlier Mentimeter, which is creating a safe space to make mistakes. It's okay to make a mistake and make it acceptable to do so. You know, one of the things that I have to be aware of as an academic manager is to get away from the behind my screen and meet with my teachers face to face to give that really nice feedback. And I love doing that. So, but I guess, how do we really do some of this stuff that I'm talking about here? So next slide, Terrence. Well, coaching is easier said than done, but coaching is done. No, not at all. False. Coaching is never over. It never actually ends. And so that's part of our roles too as academic managers, is to coach our teams. And so next slide, Terrence. All right, so we have to coach our team. So basically in coaching, we're not telling them, we're not going to fix it totally for the person or the team. We want to engage them in the process. And there are some proven ways to inspire teachers in how this is done, so it never really looks the same. So I know many of us or most of us actually work in a very casualized environment where our teams may change frequently and as our teachers change. But for me personally, I'm not really a directive manager. I am more of a consultative manager, where I put the teacher in the driver's seat so that they can steer. I try to steer them towards the right direction, and they actually come up with the ideas. And I do that because each person is so different. There's never a one-size-fits-all approach to working and coaching our teams. So one of the things is taking some early steps in that teacher journey with coaching, developing a coaching mindset for us as academic managers, and shifting away from what we really want to do, which is tell them what to do. We don't want to tell them, we want to guide them and ultimately provide solutions we want to give them solutions if they can't find their way. But we're also really busy, so sometimes it's just faster for us to give them the answer. But sit back, listen to what your teacher has to say. They often will come through to a really great solution based on their own reflection. And that's one thing that I find works really well, is that reflection stage. So rather than just pushing, when we're faced with a problem, it might just seem faster to provide the immediate answer, but it's not really going to benefit them in the long run. So give them time to find their own solution and work with them and steer them in the right direction when you need to. So those are a few little tips that I'd like to share with you today, and I hope you find it valuable. And I'm going to hand it over to Terrence for strategy number 2.
All right. Hi, everybody. So I want to talk about what we do here at ELC to basically monitor and manage performance, the expectations and satisfaction of the teachers in our school. And so we use a combination of 2 approaches. So one of them is our mentor group system, and 2, the end of course check-in. And so I'd like to talk about what these 2 processes are, and I'm going to give some feedback from the teachers and my general thoughts so far, having done this. So the first step is the mentor groups. So at ELC, we have 5 academic managers. We have the DOS, the ADOS, and 3 senior teachers. And then throughout the year, we have, a varying number of teachers, depending on, the season. So we divvy up the teachers with an academic manager based on various factors, such as teaching style, their teaching interests. So interest is like, do they like to teach exam prep courses, IELTS, Cambridge, or an EAP course? Obviously, their schedule or timetable. Some teachers teach in the day, some teachers teach in the evening. And then managers who get along better with certain teachers than other managers. So it kind of roughly looks like this at ELC. So senior teacher 2 has our EAP teachers because he happens to be the academic coordinator. And whereas I have the Cambridge teachers because that's my area of specialty. And I don't really know too much about EAP, so I don't feel like I'm the best person to guide and mentor teachers who are teaching that particular course. We have senior teacher 1 who has a large number of teachers there, 4 to 6, and she's our super PD teacher trainer, and she takes on all of our fresh off the CELTAs, new teachers, has great inspiration, motivation, strategies, techniques, and then we all have to pick up the slack here and there. Yeah, so that's the mentor group. So that one's fairly straightforward to do. But the main thing is this thing that we call the end of course check-in. So we shifted away from an annual performance appraisal to a quarterly check-in in approximately August of 2024, last year. And the primary motivations for this were a number of things. But previously, the DOS conducted all of the performance appraisals. So let's say it was an extremely busy period. I think 2023 was kind of like a golden year for a lot of schools. And so, we could have had up to 40, 45, 50 teachers at one particular point. And it would have been extremely difficult to schedule a meeting with each and every one of those teachers in that particular year. So what ended up happening was they got pushed back or delayed or even cancelled. I did a little focus group on some of the teachers to ask them what they thought about performance appraisals here or in previous employment. And generally not 100%, but close to 100%, the perception was negative. And some of the adjectives they used were things like they weren't very productive. They often focused on the negatives, things that they were doing wrong. And the overall feeling was that they were just terrifying, because you'd have to meet the DOS in the private room. Yeah, so it was never like a positive experience. And lastly, there were discrepancies between the self-appraisal form and the manager appraisal, which may have caused some conflict along the way. And I'll give an example of that on the next slide. So this is just a little snippet from our previous performance appraisal form. And so teachers were given a self-appraisal document, and they had to rate themselves on various aspects of their administration and teaching in the class, out of the class. And you can see the descriptors are things like needs improvement, okay, good, very good. And similarly, the DOS would have one for themselves. And so they would have to fill it out. And then in the meeting, they would compare and discuss these results. Now, this can be quite problematic. And so there are problems with traditional performance appraisals. And so this is just from the literature, but I have found this to be quite accurate most of the time. So what happens, there's a tendency to rate either leniently or severely. There's never like a happy medium. It's either like really amazing or really terrible. And that often is affected by whether the teacher is similar to yourself. There's this unconscious bias sometimes that we're going to rate people highest if they are similar to you. But then there's always this basing assessments on arbitrary, imprecise, or subjective evidence. The evidence may or may not even be there. Like, does if the DOS is performing the performance appraisal, has the DOS actually observed the teacher in the classroom to base this on? And so it's almost impossible just in our school for the DOS to observe every teacher's class. So that's why we kind of every academic manager has their mentees to observe. There's this thing called the halo horns effect. So we allow, like, if they're amazing in one particular area, we might let that influence us on how we assess other particular areas, or even negatively, we see them as like a very disorganized kind of person. So we kind of let that influence that they're very disorganized in the classroom, which may or may not be true. And then there's that concept of recency. So we have, it's like, you know, unconsciously we allow this very recent event, whether it was positive or negative, to overshadow older events, whether they were positive or negative as well. And lastly, there's this temptation to give priority to keeping the team as a whole productive rather than focusing on the individual and supporting and developing the individual. So it kind of defeats the purpose of this whole individual meeting. So what did we do? So how does it work? So we conduct these approximately every 12 weeks, which happen to coincide with a complete course or level. So for example, one level, let's say B1 or B1 plus, takes approximately 12 weeks. A Cambridge course is also approximately 12 weeks. Prior to that 12th week, the mentor will provide the mentee with a form to be filled out, to be discussed. And the form basically consists of questions. There's no rating oneself in terms of, like, you know, poor, good, satisfactory, great, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But these are the questions that are asked. So these include, how are you doing with your teaching? Do you need any support or assistance in relation to your teaching, employment in general, or anything standing in the way of success? 3, are there any issues you would like to raise relating to students, course content, materials, IT, or any aspect of your employment? So it's fairly broad. 4, we like to focus on, you know, positives. You know, share some of your successes that you've had with your class, whether they are small or whether they are big. You know, we want to hear about them. 5, what goals would you like to set for the next course or your professional development? And this ties in really well with Susan's idea of, you know, we've got to set SMART goals, you know, for these kinds of things. And then 6, what assistance would you like in achieving these goals? So some teachers have asked for specific workshops to tackle certain areas of teaching or classroom management or industry information. 7, would you like to receive a workshop or mentoring on any particular aspect of teaching or assessment? Okay, it's closely tied into number 6. Number 8, I do quite enjoy this one. So would you like to share a particular idea or activity with other teachers in a mini workshop? So I do want to encourage our staff. I mean, I don't believe it's the academic manager's sole responsibility to provide professional development. I do believe that teachers can also provide their experience as well. Sometimes they're too scared to offer to do this, so we want to make sure that we give them the opportunities to do so. And we've had some, you know, great feedback and some great ideas that, you know, even experienced academic managers, because we spend, you know, I guess less time in the classroom than a lot of our teachers do. Number 9, we give them the opportunity to maybe, do they want to observe a different teacher? They've heard about another teacher and their particular type of teaching style. They've heard that teacher's, like, you know, really fun, but they want to see for themselves how it is. Or they want to be observed on a particular type of lesson for feedback. 10, we want to know what their short to midterm goals are, you know. So do you just want to be stuck on general English? Do you want to do something else besides EAP or Cambridge or IELTS? If you don't tell us, we don't know. But we'll do our best to try and make this happen for you. And then 11 and 12 is basically, do you have anything else else to add about that. So a lot of these questions, actually, in fact, all of these questions don't focus on any kind of criticism or, poor performance, but it is up to you to share whether you're having difficulties with something, and then we can hopefully help you with those. Okay, so the process continues. We do speak to them for about 30 to 45 minutes. A lot of the work happens after the meeting. So we sign the form, we add our comments, we scan it, we add it to their personnel file. But the main thing is that we keep the hard copy for reference during the next check-in, but we also proceed to address the concerns or requests indicated during the meeting. And that's probably the most important factor there. And I'm going to raise that again very soon. So just a couple of other considerations. So this process is very similar to the 360-degree feedback process that's used by a lot of big corporations like IBM and Amazon. And they've moved away from traditional performance appraisals to this. So the key similarities of this is that we source data or information about each teacher from various places. So there's like self-assessment, there's the manager assessments, there's class observations, student feedback. We get student feedback in many different ways: exit evaluations, mid-course assessments. Students often talk to the receptionist and who pass on feedback as well. In some cases, we might use peer feedback. Okay, so how does this teacher work within the team? And then a variety of data sources as well. So what I do like is the next point is that the quarterly check-in allows for performance management on casual and short-term staff. So those who aren't here for the full 12 months can still benefit from this. So it does allow staff to feel as if they're part of the team, but it also shows that the school cares about its casual staff, not only its permanent staff. So what do teachers think about it? So I conducted a very, very short SurveyMonkey on the teachers, but unfortunately the participation rate was a bit low because we're going through a bit of a seasonal employment shift at the moment. But I'll just go through some of the main results. So generally, how do they feel about this process? And it is generally positive, okay, with most responses up at the extremely and very useful. How do they feel about the frequency? So again, most of them feel that quarterly is just right. There was one person who said it was too frequent, but there's always that person. And not frequent enough, I don't even know if that's feasible, to be honest, to meet them more than that. But it sounds like they do enjoy it and find value from it though. So with regard to your professional development, how useful have the check-ins been? Okay, so there's a bit of a range of feedback there. Again, someone said not so useful, but the majority had it up in the useful, because they want to let us know what PD that we should run in-house rather than us giving the PD that we think they need. It's better that we give them what they want. With regard to career or industry goals, again, it's a bit of a mixed bag here. And I think these results show kind of like the microcosm of most staff rooms, in that it shows that there are some teachers who see this as their career. This is what they're going to do for the long term. And so they find it extremely useful or very useful. And you have the certain number of teachers who are in the not so useful category, and they're the ones that are here maybe casually, or it's a means to an end, or they're currently studying at university and this is a great job to do in the meantime, because not everyone is in it for the long haul. This is probably the most important one for us, is that satisfaction with working here. How useful have they been? And it has been mostly positive in this case here. And I think this is the one that is we want to make them happy. It decreases turnover. It makes them want to continue working, as long as we have work for them. And that's generally if they're happy, they're going to perform better in the classroom. And so this is perhaps the most important question and results from the survey. I did allow a short opportunity to provide some comments, and I do want to share a couple of comments that they had, and I've underlined and boldened the key parts. So someone said, I think it's great, but it is what you make out of it. So the fact that it's regular and one-to-one is the main thing that makes it useful and effective. But it is, it's not just up to us, but it is also up to them to take advantage of this opportunity to tell us what they want so that we can help them. This one's a bit long, but overall positive, but it feels like the most personal, individualized, and supportive approach to performance appraisal and professional development. My mentor has been direct and clear, which is refreshing and appreciated, and has also been remarkably accurate in their appraisal and feedback, especially for someone who isn't in the classroom with them daily. And I think the rest of that is a little bit of sycophantic behavior at the bottom. I think I know. I suspect this person's in my mentor group. Overall, I'm quite happy, but this one had a slight, bit of feedback. So it would be nice to be able to be observed by other senior staff, which would allow them to receive feedback from get a wider range of perspectives to create a better rounded professional development. So, yep, that's something that we're going to take on board for sure. Yeah, absolutely. A teacher shouldn't be locked into one mentor for the whole time. And then someone said, maybe we could have a mentor with a few mentees who check in every week or fortnight. And it sounds great. And we'll just have to figure out how we can actually factor that in, whether it's formal or informally. But it sounds like they do enjoy the process. Okay, so my final thoughts on this is that because it is not a performance appraisal, it does allow senior staff to have a hands-on role with performance management of teachers. So it's not solely in the domain of the director of studies, but it does allow senior teachers, assistant directors to participate in this and basically, do something important. The second point is the manager to teacher ratio needs to be considered for it to be effective. So it does work here at ELC because we do have a fairly high manager to teacher ratio. But if you don't, you might need to maybe rethink the system. The managers need to have clear and effective communication channels amongst themselves to carry out post-meeting support. Yeah, so absolutely. So it's not that mentors are solely responsible for their mentees, but it is a team effort. Because in our academic management team, we all kind of specialize and we all excel at slightly different things. And so if one of my teachers has a particular goal that I perhaps am not the best at, I should consult one of my colleagues to see if they can help in that respect. And the last one is about that kind of consistent, feedback loop. So actions that are unable to be carried out, remember to check back in and tell them it can't be carried out, okay? Because sometimes they'll feel like they're left hanging, and the idea sounds great, but it's not being carried out effectively, and so teachers do appreciate that. Okay, so that's the end of my bit, and I think with what Susan added previously with the one-on-one interaction and how to set particular goals and the way you active listening, these are the things that you'll incorporate during your actual one-to-one meeting. Okay, I don't know, Maggie or Susan, oh sorry, Sophie, are we doing questions now or should we proceed to the case studies?
I think we can make a little bit of time for questions. There is actually one in the chat for you, Terence.
Oh.
What would be an effective manager to teacher ratio?
I think I've found that probably having more than 5 mentees starts to get a bit unwieldy. So yeah, I think because we are a private ELICOS school without 5 managers to at most 40 to 45 staff, That'll give us, well, if the math is correct, nine teachers, but that's very, very rare. So, I mean, at the moment, we've got maybe 20 staff, so that's about 5 teachers each, and that's actually quite easy to do, but definitely you could manage up to 9. But beyond that, I think it would be quite complicated after that, or you'd have to be extremely organized. Set reminders for yourself. So I do set reminders for myself to for when every 12 week is up for each teacher, so that then I can give them the form and then schedule in a meeting. So definitely not impossible, but yeah, you can handle up to 10.
Awesome. Thanks, Terence. Great. I think then we might jump to our last part for today, which is our case studies. So this is where we'll get all of you involved again today. It's all about how to tailor support and grow a growth mindset for different team members. So maybe something you took away today as well is that with all of these, the end of term cycles or the achievable goal setting, obviously we have to tailor it to the teacher that we are talking to. There's no one size fits all kind of support. So we have a few case studies for you today. We have drafted up 3 different profiles, maybe frequent profiles, maybe people you have in your teams or types of people that we want you to discuss in breakout rooms. So the first profile is the rising star. You have someone in your team, a casual, about 0 to 4 years of experience. They're very eager, but anxious as well, worried about job security because they're on a casual basis. And it's that type who over-prepares, works overtime, engages all the time in innovation and team collaboration. Our rising star profile. Then we have the plateaued permanent. The teacher that's permanent, ongoing, they've been around for a while, 8+ years. They're very confident. They see themselves as ready for promotion, jumping up to senior teacher, maybe a little bit skeptic of leadership. They do the minimum, avoid any change or extras. They just coast on the experience, the people that have been around for a while. And then we have the pragmatic juggler. Also an ongoing permanent employee, have been around for a while as well. They're very time conscious. They see teaching as one of the commitments that they have, so lots of other commitments. They're very efficient, very reliable. They do avoid any extras with conflicts, limited engagement with other teachers and PD sessions. Maybe when reading these out, you already realize who the people in your teams are. So we want you to discuss these case study profiles and discuss the best strategies to inspire a growth mindset for each of these people. And also maybe you can loop in how would the strategies that you learned today, strategy 1 and 2, land on these people? Would the end of term review model that Terence present, would that work well with a pragmatic juggler or not so much? How about achievable goal setting that Susan talked about? How would that work with a plateaued permanent, for example? So we'll give you a few minutes in the breakout room. Maybe I'll try to share the case studies into the breakout room too. We'll give you a few minutes and then we'll come back to discuss all together. All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had some good discussions. Does anyone want to share what they spoke about or a particular profile, a particular person, and share any insights or any advice that they came up with.
Yeah, I can. We talked quite a lot about the plateau permanent. It's quite an interesting profile that they see themselves as ready for promotion, but they're skeptical of leadership. So we thought perhaps some coaching as to what makes a good leader in that environment, and yeah, how they could perhaps use their experience and show that they're interested in being a leader a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Giving that leadership opportunity. Yeah, that's great. Absolutely. Yeah. Any other ideas?
Yeah, just building on what Kathy said there. So making the plateau permanent, the mentor, we don't have 5 DOSes or ADOSes, so giving them that role, and we find that usually the rising star inspires the plateau permanent. So usually, yeah, the experienced teacher actually is the one that wins out in the end. So, and we also discussed the pragmatic juggler. They're very difficult because they come in 10 minutes before class and take off straight away. So we thought that by working a lot on the other 2, they spend the time with the pragmatic juggler, and they can maybe inspire them that way, because I often just can't grab them. They're in and they're out before I can talk to them. So if you create an environment with the other group, they learn from that, or they see from that. So they were 2 things that we came up with.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. That's great. I like the way you give it that give and take, like the plateau permanent can learn from the rising star and vice versa, and getting the team to connect with each other. Yeah, great insights. Absolutely. Are there any other ideas?
We spoke about making sure that the rising stars also have contact time with other rising stars, maybe in a mentor group or peer observations, so that they can keep the momentum of the rising star and being, you know, excited and eager, and not maybe get swayed by the other you know, the plateaued permanent, etc. So keeping their inspiration going by feeding off each other.
Great, keeping that excitement going as long as possible. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Keeping them in the right mindset. Good. Was there anyone who spoke about the strategies, like achievable goal setting or the end of term review, and how these would land on the different profiles? Maybe for some really well, maybe for some not so well.
We talked about it in relation to the plateaued permanent, saying that it using like the coaching techniques, and also the ELC model, that it gives that person the opportunity to reflect on where they're at, what they're doing, why they're doing what they're doing, how they're and how they're doing it. And it sort of forces them into thinking about what it is they want and need at this point in time. Not truly forcing, but it's dependent on them actually engaging openly in the process and not being a bit cynical or recalcitrant about it and just going through the motions. But I think it's got a lot of potential to get them reflecting on where they're at and what they're doing, how they're doing it.
Great thoughts, Leanne. And I think you tackled a very important point there, the why they're doing it, because the why is the most important thing about inspiration, right? We want them to be excited about the why am I in international education? Why am I language teaching? To get them into that growth mindset. Great. Awesome. Shannon said we have teacher swap shops to share ideas. The rising stars get to bounce off ideas of each other, and some of the other pick up ideas. Yes, wonderful. We have that at our college too, and it's really lovely. And also ties in with what Terence said, with giving teachers the opportunity to share in PD as well. So that's great. Awesome. Were there any other final thoughts on the profiles? Please speak up if you like. Okay, no worries. Thanks for sharing, everyone. We are at the end of our session today. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you learned a few good strategies that you can take away. If there's any one that you would like to share, please do so. We've got a couple of minutes. Otherwise, thank you all for participating. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one, hopefully.